You are good to get going at any point, Jared.
All right, I call this meeting to order at May 18th of 2023 at 5:01 p.m. We are the S&A Committee, and we have an agenda. So I haven't done a roll call here before, but it sure looks like people are present.
I will assist you with that. We do have Brandon has notified us he will be absent. Both Alice and Evelyn are not currently here, but will be joining us. They let us know they were running late. Otherwise, both Brady and Jared are present, as is Sean, and then Aaron, Jessica, and myself as the advisors and admin support. And we also have our guest speakers, Gretchen, Jennifer, Francesco, and I'm assuming it's Lola. It says publicity, but I know it's Lola.
You know, we can always just refer to them as publicity if they really want to. Not judgmental that way.
And we have Nicholas joining us as well, coming in.
Cool. Do we have a quorum currently?
No, we don't. So we'll approve the official pieces once either Alice or Evelyn joins us. Okay, we can still move through the presentations.
Yep, I will table, well, I guess not table, but postpone the agenda items that require quorum to later, and we will move on to presentations. So who would like to be the first victim?
We can go in the order on there. With the first one being our supplemental funding request from the Observer. Jared.
Yeah, so I guess that's me. Am I okay to share my screen?
Let me set it really quick and it should let you now.
Okay. Okay, let's see here. And is everyone able to see the presentation, not my notes or anything like that?
Yes, and then no, because it just changed.
Okay, great.
We did a second ago, and now it shows the presentation and the notes.
Yes.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Sorry. Let me stop sharing for a second. Okay. Now it should be good.
Just remember the audience doesn't get to see the script.
Now we can see just the presentation, Gretchen.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys so much for letting us come and talk about our supplemental request today for this year. What we want to do is we want to talk to you about why you should continue supporting the Observer with your funding. We want to talk about the key elements of our budget that are really making a difference. We want to discuss the reasoning our expenses have gone up and why we are requesting more funds, as well as the amount that we're going to request. And we think it's important that we end on an important note on this presentation. For supporting the Observer, you're really supporting the students. So Observer is a really high impact student organization. We give practical experience to those wanting to participate in journalism, PR, and media. We're also regionally recognized. We just won Best Affiliated Website, and we're a finalist in Best Student Newspaper over a 5-state region, according to the Society of Professional Journalists. And not only that, it's also a campus tradition that's been around for 100 years, which makes Central really unique. And most importantly, we serve all students. Students are able to get our local news. We assist in providing a very informed student body. People are really intelligent, and being able to get their news from us just helps us serve the community that much better. And when we want to talk about our budgets, we first want to talk about our revenue. As you can see, I pulled the data from 2019 through this year. Back before the pandemic started, we were making over 100K between our sales and our allocations. Since that time, we have gone down drastically with about $37,000 less in our ads and sales. And this is also because during the pandemic, no one was really advertising all over the country. Vendors were just not investing in advertisements. They were just trying to stay afloat. And that has really impacted our general resources. We are currently down by 54%. So the fact that we are down so much makes our expenses even more impactful to our overall budget. If we look at our expenses back in 2019, we had about 88.5 grand in total expenses, and that has kind of gone down a downward trajectory through the pandemic. But as the country and the world are getting back to the normal means of operations, our expenses have gone back up. So you can see here that we have actually gone back up in our expenses from last year. And we think that this is largely due to an increase in wages and our printing costs. If we were to look at the minimum wage in Washington, from 2020 to 2023, there has been a 74-cent increase. And while this doesn't seem very impactful, if we actually look at that from the 2020 actuals, over the course of 9 months that our students were employed at the previous rate versus how they were employed at the previous rate and the new rate over the course of this year, we have about a $6,000 difference. And this is only one of 3 variables in our budget that has been really impactful. And we look at the observer printing cost history. We are also getting back to our normal printing costs, and we've gone up about $600 this year. It's also important to notice that we are paying for the minimum amount for our printing. If we were printing less, it would still cost the same. And it's important to print at all because it's more accessible to the students. We make the student newspaper available for all students on campus. It's as easy as walking by and picking it up. And then they don't have to worry about going out and finding us online. They can if they want to. We have a great website, but this is just another accessible way for them to get their news. If we look at the difference in wages, which was the $6 grand, along with the difference in printing, and then we combine that with the amount cut from our budget for this fiscal year, we see that it's about a 12.5 grand increase in expenses. This is a crucial number, as you will see in the next slide, because we are projected to be a little over $12,000 in the red by the end of this year. You will notice that this is a smaller number than our initial request, and that's because we've had some unforeseen advertisements come along since we first submitted the request. But we will still be in the red by about that $12,000, which is why we need your help. It also brings us to an important point that since those numbers are so similar, our increases expenses and the amount that we will be in the red, it's only about a $400 difference. You can see that since those numbers are so similar, we've really narrowed it down to the fact that it's our increase in wages and our printing costs, 2 very unforeseen expenses that are really behind us being in the red. And it's important to note that if our budget hadn't been cut, we would only be in about 50% debt than what we are now. And I think this is just important to keep in mind as we head into the next fiscal year. But I really want to bring this back to that this is about supporting the student. Our organizations our local news is brought to the students through this magazine and our student organization. And it's really recognized in the region. We not only inform students, but also include them. Our newspaper covers students' organizations across campus, emphasizing their success and presence in the community, which means we really give them a voice and visibility at Central, which I think is very important for the student impact. And we want to continue on that tradition as best we can. And to do that, we need adequate funding. So we really thank you for letting us come and speak to you today. We are open to any questions.
Thank you, Gretchen. That was a good presentation. I personally don't have any questions on that. Does anyone else?
I can unmute, sorry. I don't have any questions. Thank you. It was all it all made perfect sense. So definitely makes sense. So thank you.
Francesco?
I thank you all for listening to us today and giving us an opportunity to make this request. I just wanted to add to the great presentation that Gretchen gave, the fact that we have, we'd like our staff members of student media go to conferences.
Your audio is breaking up a little bit. Could you repeat what you just said?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yep, can.
Okay, so sorry. I wanted to add the fact that one of the things that we do with student media and the students who work for student media is allow them to go to conferences so that they can improve their preparation, network, and learn from other outlets produced by students nationwide. This year, we have decided to only send them to one conference because we were facing these budget constraints. And we also, instead of using funds from S&A, we used advancement money. So funding that was coming from philanthropic support that we received in the department for students who study journalism. So that's just to show that we are making an effort not to weigh on S&A funding as much as we can, but we are still finding ourselves in a difficult position. That's all. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Francisco. Does anyone want to comment or discuss or have questions on that?
Could I add something really fast to Gretchen's
Sure.
Presentation, which is that we did not have anybody in Gretchen's role as the student media business manager for quite a while. So we have not really had the possibility of going out and selling ads as well as we would have liked to over the last couple of years since over the last year since the pandemic ended. So we're also ramping that activity up and are hoping to really generate more revenue. And we've got a new student media rate card, and Gretchen has made contact with local businesses and campus organizations. So we think that our revenues are really going to rise on that end as well.
It's always good to have somebody to wrangle the numbers instead of them going down the drain. All right, let's go to Joey.
So I'm going to ask a question that I don't think, Gretchen, you'll have an answer for because it was before you were here. And I'm only asking this because I have a feeling it will come up in the discussion next week when they're deliberating. And this is also a point of information for the committee. So I know in the fall when the reductions were taking place, you all did not have a say in that. It was decided at the divisional level. So it was decided within the provost area. But was there any, or what was, if any, discussion or plan about, I know it looks like the reduction was about $5,600 in terms of offsetting of that cost or things like that took place when you all were notified, and also when, I guess, were you all notified knowing Gretchen's role was not filled until the winter? So this may be more a question for Jennifer or Francesco, but.
Go ahead, Francesco.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Oh, I think he's asking if once we were notified about the reduction in our funding, sort of how we plan to offset that this year, considering that really is most of what we are asking for help with.
Okay, yeah, that, so, and then also when you all potentially got notified, because I don't know when that would have trickled down decision.
Honestly, I don't remember that. The one thing that we did was deciding to reduce the number of students who were going to conferences and the number of conferences. So we sent them to one only. Typically, we try to get them at least to two of those, one closer to home and one wherever the national conference is held. But I would like to also add one more piece of information, which is that the College of Arts and Humanities is now fully funding Gretchen's position. So the logistical support that we are giving student media is greater from the standpoint of academics than it was in the past. So in that sense, too, we're not weighing as much on S&A funds as we were before. So we're making, what I'm trying to say is that we're making all the efforts we can to try to save money and not spend more than we have. But we also want to make sure that we give the students who want to be on student media an opportunity to be on student media and work for them and produce the great content that they do, which is what makes us win awards and gives visibility to Central nationwide. So, I mean, we are hitting a really tough spot in which to save more, we would have to say no to students and tell them, yes, you cannot be on student media because we don't have the means to pay you, basically.
All right. Unless anyone would like to add more to this presentation or discussion, I think we should move on to the next topic.
Yep. Thank you all. We'll deliberate and vote on this at next week's meeting.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. So up next, we have the Student Academic Senate. Do we have anybody to present on that one?
That is me. Joey, do we want to wait so I'm not just presenting to Jared?
I
mean, I'm
mean, they'll be able to watch the recording, but I think for the sake of our guests who are present, if you are willing, since again, we have no agenda that was approved, I would probably recommend us going ahead and allowing, and I guess this is up to Lola. Lola's the only other one. All the rest are you, Brady. And I will be assisting Brady with this specific one on the Student Academic Senate. The others he's on his own for, so.
Okay, then I will say let's continue with Ola if you don't mind.
Hello. Actually, mine will be pretty quick. It's very straightforward. The request is to carry forward funds that are generated by revenue activity. And I am happy to provide some examples of ways in which we had planned to use our revenue funds, if that would be helpful. Probably the first and most alarming is that we have 10 workstations that do not run on the most current operating system and therefore do not run the software that we need to operate our program. We do have more, so that's 10 of 16, including one laptop, which is not a workstation, but it was used for content creation for our for our marketing team. And the rest of those are going to be outdated within the next 2 years, which is roughly the end of this quadrennial cycle. So our hope is over the next 2 years to be able to replace most, if not all of them. In the meantime, of course, the costs have gone up significantly on equipment. The last time we bought new computers, I believe, was in 2018. We got 2 that could run video, and we got a few more smaller ones that were, we actually got funded by the computer, I can't remember what it's called, but it was this program where we were basically able to trade in through computer support services, because at that time our office was considered more of a learning lab, almost like a computer lab. And so we were able to get financial support for some of those machines, which was awesome. That program was retired. So it is definitely on all of us to make do with what we have right now and hoping to, like I said, replace that. A couple other things which I brought up in previous meetings are just the increased costs of supplies and operating. Obviously, you know all about the increase in student wages, staff wages too. I mean, that is only going to continue to rise, which is great in some ways, but you know, it's a reality. We have not increased our fees to people for service. In fact, we have cut them significantly. And so we are generating less revenue now than we were even, well, I guess pre-pandemic. So anyway, I am happy to take questions.
I've got 2. What was the cause and benefit of reducing the fees that you had pre-pandemic to now? I guess that's the first one.
Just well, a couple of reasons. One, at the time, we knew that we had a healthy fund balance from our revenue generation that we would be able to utilize to help mitigate these increasing costs, decreasing, but I mean, the budget impact from having reductions and that sort of thing. The other thing was to simplify how we were charging so that it was just cleaner for people to understand. We do have any department that has S&A funding support does get a discount on fees, and then those who do not. So yeah, if that makes sense, it's basically two things to help mitigate the impact for other people and share what we have in a way that is helpful to them.
Okay, and then my second one is because I'm new in this committee, and even though I'm pretty much the only person here, if you wouldn't mind describing exactly what the publicity, group or department does. I mean, like what do you use S&A funding for and all that?
Oh, I would be happy to, Jared. Give me 1 sec. I need to cough. The Publicity Center, okay, I'm going to do this fast. The Publicity Center was created 26 years ago. It was something that was brought forward as a wish by ASCWU, and at the time, a department called Campus Life. And the wish was to have a dedicated office that would help promote student events. At the time, it was not funded by S&A. It took a few years, and then it was funded a little bit here, a little bit there. There was revenue generation, and then the S&A committee said, "Oh my gosh, let's do it because it's working." So since then, I mean, it was just me and a few students. Now it's me and 2 other professional staff. And this year we have fewer students because of some who graduated mid-year, and then also to make sure that we weren't overspending. We just didn't hire quite as many. We had a student who left with a medical issue partway through the year, and we just did not fill those positions. But typically, when campus is running and there's a lot of activity, student activities, programs, events being planned, we would have between 16 and 18 students. And we also have student interns in the summer. We do everything from graphic design and video work to marketing, writing. We have a quarterly publication called Hype that really is a snapshot of all the events for the upcoming quarter. And so, yeah, we just employ students to promote student stuff.
Cool. Does anyone else have any questions?
I guess my only question is the ask just for the revenue that y'all made today or made this year just to be carried forward to next year. Am I understanding that right?
No, it's more than this year because there's nowhere near enough to replace computers. I think right now we'll probably end up with a little bit more than what we projected, which was 30,000. But it will take a significantly more than that to replace all those computers and provide some of the other mitigating things that I talked about earlier for other departments. So the ask, I guess, is for what you all would be willing to. Typically, we have carried forward funds. That's why we have a significant amount.
Right. That makes sense.
All right, Joey.
And this is less a question, but since Brady just asked it, I'm going to add it in here. Because one of the things that makes this complicated is the funds get intermingled, and we'll talk about this later, but I'm going to say 2 different things here that are not questions, so I apologize, but I'm pretending that I'm answering part of Brady's question. It becomes challenging because if we look at just this funding cycle, the Publicity Center had sales and services of just under 60,000 last year. And as Lola just referenced, and I don't know what our current one is at, but it was projected to be about 35,000 for this year. The hard part being is that in a general sense, and Brady, you know some of this because we've talked about it with student government, when S&A money is used as essentially the seed money, all the money gets treated as S&A money. It has the same restrictions, same pieces that Lola is very aware of. So it becomes hard if you all don't differentiate, or if we're not just looking solely at this funding cycle, because we can see exactly what is there. The other part, and this one, I'm going to say something, but then Lola, if you can give some more clarity, because I don't fully know what your all's year end normally looks like. I think one of the challenges that arises when we talk about rolling back sales and services, so their own revenue generating, is it feels a little bit different because they get their S&A allocation the very beginning of the year. So July 1, they have their full amount, they know what it is. I believe, and this is where the questions are going to come in, they collect their revenue that's revenue generated the entire year, meaning even as we're rolling into June and ending the fiscal year, you all are probably still having funds transferred to you from other departments or expenses. Is that right, Lola?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Try to get it wrapped up, but I mean, you know, there's stuff coming in and going out in June as well.
Yeah. And so that was the part I was going to say for you all, is that's where it makes it complicated, because that makes it difficult if they don't get the money until June, because it's been transferred over where they can't spend that money and then it rolling back. So not that I'm advocating for any sort of one way or the other, just stating a factual piece that was there that I wanted Lola to clarify, that revenue is coming in throughout the entire year as they are doing services and providing things to programs and departments and those.
All right, Lola.
The other thing is that I want to say is really the only reasonable time for us to do any sort of equipment replacement is during the summer. Our hope is to get an order in the next probably week or two, but that doesn't mean that they will arrive and be ready to go, because I'm sure that computer support services is quite busy right now. And, you know, they have to do all the software install and everything else, all the safety stuff. And so if we had no funds, well, I mean, we just wouldn't be able to continue the level of service. So again, that is like the most sort of emergent thing in my mind. I did not realize what poor shape we were in until I did an inventory and talked with them actually early this week. That's why the last minute, oh, I need to get on the agenda and talk about this, because that's the first thing. But yeah, we do a lot of work over the summer as well, and most of that is outlay directly from us. We're not necessarily generating a lot of revenue. We're just doing a lot of work for people sort of preparing. But it is truly just, it adds up over the year.
Oh, Elton, my mic is unmuted. Well, thank you for that. Now, Joey, I do have a question. Do I have to recuse myself from this discussion because I'm a computer science major and I'm very partial to new computers?
No, you do not. You get no benefit as long as Lola's not purchasing the computers from you.
Don't worry, I won't be putting any labor in on them either. All right, well, I think that concludes that, because we're actually down to just a couple of minutes of Q&A left. So unless there's a last question or two, I would like to move on back to Student Academic Senate, which is a Brady thing.
And I'll start talking on that one, and Brady can hop in because I can give a little more historical context. I did forget, because we didn't approve the agenda. I know he's there. I don't know what he's turning to say. Oh, look, Evelyn, now we have quorum. Yeah. Yay.
That's definitely one way to do it.
Right. I was like, I don't know why he's so excited. He doesn't get that excited when we join the meeting, just so you know, Evelyn. So this is a separate piece, but I'm letting you all know there has been a request to table, and I would have shared this when we got to the agenda piece, but we didn't approve the agenda, to table section D under new business, the carry forward funding request for Student Senate Casino Night. We will have that on the agenda for next week's meeting for them to present, as well as any discussion or voting from you all. But given other things we will be talking about and availability, that was requested to be tabled. So,
okay, well, now that we have a quorum, I would make a motion to do the approval of the minutes from the 11th.
so you have to entertain it since you're chairing. So someone else has
that's
to make
right.
it
I
second.
do.
I would
We-
move that we
Go ahead.
approve the, where do we, minutes or agenda? We should do agenda.
Agenda.
I move that we approve this agenda with the amendment to table the casino night request.
There's
Second.
only there we go. I was like, I can't do it either. All right, so that's approved. Great. Then we are going to move on to approval of the agenda, which is our previous thing. I'm working backwards in time here. So
You're good. You're good. Approval of the minutes. We're looking at the minutes.
yeah. Well, actually, Brady, did you just motion for the minutes or the agenda?
I did the agenda.
Okay, cool. So we'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes if somebody would like to bring that.
So moved.
Second.
We're a functional government. Yay. All right, so that is also approved. And Joey, do we have any communications received?
Other than what you all see on here, with the mass amount of requests and things, that is it. And then the only other piece is just for you all as a reminder. We do have only one more business meeting, which is next Thursday for the year. We'll wrap up. You all will get the thanks and things from me at that point, but we only have one more meeting next Thursday. But yep, other than that, everything that's communicated is all what is down below under the new business.
All right, then I'm going to hold for public comment, see if anybody wants to chime in with anything here for like 10 or 20 seconds. Speak now or forever hold your peas. Waiting just a little bit to see if anyone throws anything to chat.
I threw my hand up.
Well, you are public, so you can comment.
But this is not S&A business related. So
Go for it.
this is just a heads up to you all, and hopefully you know this. We have a lot of events and programs coming up in the next week. We have several things going on tomorrow with Sweezy Day here on the Ellensburg campus. And so for those who don't know, Sweezy Day is a tradition from way back that ended in the 70s, looking to kind of bring back the idea and the positive aspects of it. And so we have several things going on tomorrow. We also have the start of some of our ESC graduations happening this weekend with, I believe it's Raisa's grad on Saturday. And a whole host of things going on next week with Carnival and others that I'll give updates again next week. So just be aware there's a lot going on. If you are in Ellensburg, you want to take a look as well. The Hype does a fantastic job of putting those out there, which comes from the Publicity Center. So you can see what else coming up. So that's my public comment.
Mike made it again. I said good tie into the previous presentation. All right, so public comment is done. Let's see. I will entertain a motion to postpone item D, the carry forward funding request for casino night from ASCW to next week.
We actually won't need to, since Brady put that in his motion to approve the agenda with that tabled. So
Oh, that would
We
help
already
if I
got it
read the agenda in that location then.
you're good. You're good. Yeah.
All right, let's see what else we have, because we're kind of like all over.
But
the
you were
place
on
and
top of
hopping
it to
around.
make sure. I think we're on section B of a new business, the Student Academic Senate programmatic
Yes, I
structure
believe that is
change.
correct. So Brady, you're up again / Joey.
Do you want me to give a brief piece first, Brady, and then you chime in, or vice versa?
I have a little, can I share my screen? I have a whole PowerPoint. It's not PowerPoint, it's Canva, but
Yeah, no, you can share screen right now. You should be able to. Let me know if it's not letting you.
It's okay. The computer scientist will forgive you for your technological sins.
it's the green button right in front of my face. Okay. Share, y'all are seeing yourselves. Present, okay. You guys are over here now to my other monitor, so if I'm looking weird, just know there's another screen with your faces on it. Oh, we're all the way in the back. Sorry, I did it.
That was quick, succinct. I like it.
All right, so while there is an order, I did it all in the same presentation. So to start with, hi, I'm presenting for ASW Student Government, so taking off my S&A hat and presenting on behalf of Student Government as Vice President. So really quick, as you guys see, I have several things on the agenda. So we'll go over our first item, which is the Student Academic Senate program change request, then Student Senate programming and wage budget reallocation, and then a wage increase reallocation proposal for all of the other ASCW budgets. So with that, before we go into the specifics, I wanted to give a quick highlight of what the associated students really are. So this is the beginning of our Constitution. All students at Central are automatically part of the associated students and are part of our Constitution. So we, the associated students of Central Washington University, have the right and responsibility to serve as a resource and advocate for all students. For this purpose, the governing bodies of the associated students of Central Washington University shall: 1, represent student interests and opinions to the university administration, the Board of Trustees, academic governance structures, and appropriate external government bodies. 2, support student success in their academic endeavors. 3, foster students' rights and responsibilities and inform students on the proceedings of the associated students and of the university. And 4, promote the general welfare of all students. So this is really what student government is all about. It is at the very top of our Constitution. It's our preamble. It is for all students. And yeah, sorry that for reading right off the slide. Don't generally like to do it, but it is word for word. So with that, our first request for the evening is to ask the S&A committee to approve that the funds allocated for the Student Academic Senate be changed and approved to use for the ASW Student Senate. I'll let Joey kind of chime into that whole thing and then give an oversight of the two bodies, the Academic Senate and the Student Senate, their differences and why we made the change, but I'll hand it over to Joey.
So to give a little context here, without giving the differences between the two, but just the historical piece here, these bodies, one became the other within the last, it was 3 years ago. The challenge is that happened to coincide and be just after the last base funding request time period. And so the base funding requests that were submitted in that year happened at the same time the Student Government and Student Academic Senate were having discussions on what the structure would look like. And so what was submitted to S&A and was approved was for the programmatic structure of Student Academic Senate. I don't want to jump too much into what Brady is going to say in terms of what that is, but a decision was made for very intentional reasons to change that into what is the current model of Student Senate. When that happened, AACW made public information, all those things went around, so there was public notice. However, there was never the house cleaning part of coming back to S&A to say, hey, we've changed the structure of this, which has all been happening publicly over here. However, what that means is the funding is being used not in the manner in which it was allocated, which you all as the committee essentially have to approve that, yes, you are okay with the use of funds being different than how it was originally allocated 2 years ago, or when it was funded 2 years ago. And so I say all of this, this has been a house cleaning thing that has been on the conversation for a period of time. As some of you know, when we talked about this in the fall, some of this has happened and been delayed due to a number of transitions in leadership and administration who were the ones involved in the discussion and the oversight. Actually, 2 rounds of that have happened in the 2 years. And so none of those individuals came forward. And so it was one that I've been talking with Brady since the start of the year when he was in a different role, that we had to come in to try and get this before the board, but also knowing the challenge of, especially at the start of the year, we wouldn't have been able to vote on it because the majority of the S&A committee was made up of student senate members or student senate speakers. So had to wait until this reason, which is why we're coming now within this academic year. But go ahead and chime into on your side, Brady. I'm happy to add any more information about the 2.
Cool. Okay. So I did find a really old archived website for the Student Academic Senate and was able to pull some information. So I'll just refer to as the Academic Senate from now on. It was formed back in 2008 and really was comprised of senators from every academic department on campus. So for instance, I'll pick on like computer science and communication department. It would be a senator representing those small departments from all over campus, and was really the strong student voice for students regarding administration, faculty, not so much staff, just because it was academically focused, but I'm sure there was, they did voice their opinion to staff, as always happens. And then their main goals were to really spread awareness of the important information and to represent the student body. One thing that holds over to the current student senate is that the senators really are our boots on the ground, said that backwards, to represent students, to work with students, to be in the day-to-day of all students. There's obviously a lot of people in student government, and there's the 6 board members, but we often get caught up in the day-to-day functions of just functioning as an organization and don't necessarily get to spend our days working with students. This is where the Student Senate comes in hand. But some downsides of the Academic Senate was it was more and more just becoming a place for all student concerns, not just academic affairs. It was growing to be representative of all aspects on campus. And then also those senators weren't paid. So they were like all of us, just volunteering. Well, everyone besides me, because I do get paid for this. But just volunteers basically representing their fellow students. And we want to be able to pay our student leaders, especially since there's such large commitment in this role. And then also, one aspect to begin why we started to think of changing is that student government, and really every student here, is part of an organization called the Washington Student Associations. And that has a very large mission, but at its core, it brings all the student governments from all the public universities, besides Eastern, for some reason, together to talk with each other, to connect, to see what's working, to pull our efforts together and make change for students together. Part of this is we learn from each other, and we saw that at many other universities, our partner institutions, the Student Senate model that we have similar today worked much better for representing their students than our Student Academic Senate model. So it was also taking what we learned and applying it in a central way to continue to grow. I mean, that's the goal of all our programs, and the whole reason we're all here, right, is to learn and grow our programs and grow ourselves. So with that, in 2020, wow, I always get those years mixed up using all the 2s. SAS transitioned to Student Senate. This was right in the middle of the year, like Joey was saying, where there was also the quadrennial requests going in. And so there was a little bit of overlap there where there's just kind of this discontinuation. And obviously the pandemic hit a couple of months later. So I'm sure that at one point there was the intention to come to S&A, but I think all of our lives we know were really crazy at that point. So in 2020, the student body, along with the Student Academic Senate and student government, decided on a model of having 23 senators who would be paid. They are paid 5 hours a week, which is really awesome. And they largely maintain the same mandate of Academic Senate. However, these senators differ a little bit because they aren't just coming from academic departments, they're coming from every aspect of student life. So we do have senators from each of the colleges representing the academic side of things, along with graduate studies and transfer students and all of these very academic related constituencies. But we also have senators representing the Equity and Services Council, Disability Services, Veterans Center, Sustainability. So these really personal student life aspects of being a central student too, are now represented in the Student Senate. But as Joey was talking about, this allocation from S&A was meant for Student Academic Senate when senators weren't paid. And this budget was to support programming. So the Academic Senate, much like the current Student Senate, put on lots of programs for students, got them engaged, was reaching out, and then 2 administrators to help the Senate Speaker, who is the chair of the Student Senate and is a board member, but is not compensated through this budget, really manage the Student Senate. And those 2 admin also support the senators in their work too. So like what we were talking about, the allocation was for programming. When this model change happened though, all of that programming budget and all the money that was intended for Student Academic Senate was instead used to pay for the wages of the senators and for still the 2 admin. That hasn't changed. Obviously, this is not the original intent of the allocation though, and so that's what we're here to hopefully remedy today. But we are conscious of the budget situation, and I also wanted to note that while it was 23 senators to begin with in 2022, the student body in the spring elections voted to lower the senator level from that 23 to 15 senators. This removed all of the duplicate positions. For example, I think there was 2 or 3 senators for the College of Arts and Humanities, along with most of the other colleges had more than 1 senator. Also, undergraduate transfer students had 2 senators. ESC had 2 senators representing them. All of those positions were just dropped down to 1 senator representing that area. The only duplicate positions still are 3 senators at large, which represent all constituencies, and you can be any student to represent that in those positions. So. And that was really just to better align with our budget situation. You know, the 10% had came out, but I'll get more into the budget specifics at our next request. So I don't know if Joey, if you have anything to add on, but that's really the end of my explanation of why we're hoping to reallocate this these funds. I'm happy to take questions from the 2 people on either side of me.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, if there are questions, I can give quite a bit more, but I know we're at the 10 minutes for this part of the proposal. So. Are there questions from Evelyn or Jared? Or Sean?
I'm good.
Yeah, this makes sense to me.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I was here in the fall too, so I remember this.
Yeah. I think the one part, I know there wasn't a question, but I'm going to throw it in since we don't have any questions. The one thing that is different within this and is known, and this was a made decision, is the funding is almost inverted currently. When it was originally funded, it was $9,000 for payroll, which was mostly only those admin positions, and about $48,000 for goods and services. Those goods and services went towards events and development opportunities like what Student Senate does, but it also a huge chunk of that went towards student travel to conferences or programs, those individual areas or students. And that was student clubs or orgs within academic departments had access to. All of those have been wrapped up within the RSO now for those requests, so we don't have separate entities. So that was part of the intentionality of the restructuring. Otherwise, we had groups going to RSO Club Council and Student Academic Senate and S&A all asking for funding for the same trip and getting bits and pieces from everyone. So to streamline that.
But the funds are entirely now used just for wages. Yeah, I just had to say that out loud. Cool. Are we good?
I think there's a tiny portion, if you look at the annual report, about $1,600 total for the entire year last year was out of the $42,000 was used for goods and services.
Yeah, and the thing about that is that was just extra money left over because last year the Student Senate actually didn't start till winter quarter because of the fact that, you know, this budget was never meant to support wages. And then this year we were actually, we've had some extra money that's gone towards programming and goods and services, but that's only because we've had a couple of vacancies. We're trying to budget and be allocated in a sense in an ideal world where we're not depending on vacancies. We also didn't have a large incentive to fill those vacancies because we depended on that money to have, you know, room reservations and name tags. So if you look at the budgets, there is some stuff that doesn't go towards wages in this model, but That's just because it's left over. All right, then with that, I will move on to our second request. That's all good with Joey and Jared. Cool. Jared, you good with me continuing?
Yes, I am.
Cool. All right, so our second request, still about the Student Senate. So hopefully, oh, Sean, did you?
I just need to point out that you keep putting up pictures from our CW night, which puts you in good graces with me. So not that I have any power whatsoever, but
They're good photos. We get a lot of photos from that, which is awesome.
I would also like to point out that the rule of thirds is being observed, so good job.
That's not always the case, Jared, so please forgive me. So our second request, ideally, assuming that the approval that those funds are readjusted to go with this new model, this second request is for an increased allocation for the Student Senate to provide appropriate wages, programming, and ability to serve students to their fullest potential. Like we talked about, all of that money that was previously allocated is just going towards wages now. The Student Senate still has a strong desire and mandate to program though, and just normal office functions too. So we'll delve into that. So really quick, right off the bat, you guys already heard a lot about the Senate and its purpose, so I'm not spending too much on that time. This is my proposed reallocation. So like we were talking about wages, so I'll get more into why we need the increased wages in a little while in the next proposal. But for the sake of just ease, I included it in this request. So all the Senate stuff is here. We are hoping to get a $3,000 roughly increasement to go towards wages and benefits, a $1,500 goods budget. This money would go towards things like buying uniforms and name tags and nameplates so they are professional and identifiable. $2,500 for services. I don't know if services is the correct classification, but this money would be just simply for room reservations largely. In the past years after the models changed, the Senate had a traveling Senate where they would go to a new location every meeting. They meet weekly on campus. This was great for the senators to see different parts of campus, however, was not great for the students who needed to access the senators because they were in a new location every meeting, and also Washington state law asks that we meet regularly in the same place. So this year we transitioned to meeting every Monday in 137, so to be right in the middle of the student union. This does come with a cost though, to set up the room, to pay the people to set up the room, microphones, to print agendas, all of these things. That's $2,500. I will be honest, it's about $200 more than what we probably are going to have spent this year, but that's in planning for increased cost. As costs keep increasing, we want to be planning ahead, so we don't have to come back and do this all over again next year. And then a $500 supply budget. This would largely be paying just for normal office things, so pens, paper, notebooks, minute keeping materials, all the things that go into the normal function of an office that the Senate needs to just have a little bit of funds for. Also, in case if name tags or nameplates are ever a little bit more expensive than we planned for, this budget can also help supplement that. But again, it's not a lot. And then a total programming budget of $5,750. This is broken down a little bit though, just so you guys know what this is really going towards. So each senator is required to put on an event. It's in their job description. Not big events, but it does come with a cost. You have to purchase the chalk. You have to purchase the bubble machines. Those were the last two I can think of. Tie-dyeing materials. All of these events are very much geared towards student morale. I've heard several testimonies from students that these events that the senators put on do go a long way to student morale, especially on campus students. So that's just $250 for each senator. It tallies, since there's 15 senators, total of $3,750. Again, just trying to be as low as possible, but also ensuring our senators have funds to do this. Right now, senators have three options: either pay for it themselves out of their money, which they don't get paid a lot to begin with, find to see if maybe a department will partner with them or give them materials, which isn't as common as we'd hope, just because we're all facing budget cuts. But we have had some really gracious partners that we really appreciate. And then they could just, find scrounge for supplies in our ASCW office, which also are not limited and do have a cost associated too. And so there's that individual senator programming budget that we're hoping to have, and then a general programming budget of $2,000. Every year, the Senate tries to put on one large event going forward to really bring attention to the Student Senate. Since we changed models during the pandemic, many students don't know about us. More and more, we're seeing increased engagement, but this general programming to put on one event, large scale event, is in hopes of increasing that so students know who the representatives are. $2,000, to be honest, is not enough for this event, but it is. We are hoping that the $2,000 allocated will be enough to assist with any money that the BOD could spare. So this year, the BOD has had the funds, which won't be the case going forward, to give all the funds needed for this event. But in the years, it'll have to be split between the two budgets. So this $2,000 is to get the Senate to a good point, but still being conscious of our budget. All of these numbers are really conscious of just getting us the bare minimum to function as student representatives. We're really trying to be budget conscious. So the total reallocation request is $13,302.92. And that would go on top of the already existing $38,988. That's just for wages and benefits, ideally, assuming we have no vacancies. So if this reallocation request is approved, we would have a total allocation of $52,000. Just want to get that number in front of y'all. Just want to be very transparent of all of the different pools of money and what it would end up being. So that's the end of for this presentation. And any questions?
If I am correct in my research on this topic, people that hold these offices are getting 19 hours a month, I believe.
So the senators are only paid 5 hours a week.
Okay.
The only exception is the vice speaker, who is like a vice chair, does get paid 10 hours a week because he has some extra, or they have some extra responsibilities to assist the Senate speaker. And then there are 20 hours of admin assistant hours available per week. The Senate speaker can divide that up amongst 2 staff at 10, 1 staff at 20, 4 staff at 5 hours, whatever the discretion is and is best for those staff. So they're really not being paid a lot for a lot of hours either, which is, I'm not asking for an increasement for that. We're just trying to maintain that.
Okay. That's all of my questions.
Okay.
Joey?
Yeah, and this is more a correction. I think the total allocation you put in there, Brady, was adding the 13,000 off of what was given this year after the reduction. The actual adjustment to the base funding allocation would put it at 56,623 if we add the 13,303 on top of.
Oh, I haven't taken out the 10, or I did take out the 10%.
You did, yeah, because the actual student Senate allocation as was approved for the quadrennium is $43,320 a year. So just a correction. It's on the agenda correctly.
Okay. So the reallocation stays the same, but that $30,000 is still after the 10%. So yes. So this total allocation, in essence, though, would still be roughly with the 10% reduction. So still be budget friendly. Apologize for the mishap.
It would also be very ironic if you, of all people, ran into that.
Yeah.
But that's fine. Okay, so I'm happy with all of these. So I'm assuming we're doing discussion and voting on these next meeting.
He's not done. He has more presentations after this, Jared. But yes, we are going to vote and discuss next week.
Okay, so
I don't know if Evelyn has questions. I realize she's behind Brady on the same screen. So if she's trying to talk, you can just gently move Brady to the side, Evelyn.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
I'll just ask if there are any questions on this before we move forward. And I'll take that as a no. So let's move on.
All right. So our third request is to approve increased funding for the ASW Board of Directors, Legislative, Student Life, and ESC budgets in order to pay staff appropriately. So these are purely wage increase asks, nothing to do with programming. The Senate wage increases are done. I asked for them for the same reasons as I'm about to go into. However, I've included them in the last reallocation request, so we didn't have to make 2 reallocations to the Senate budget, and it all made sense. I hope that works, but I'm happy to go back to that last budget at any time when we get to the end. So before I delve into the exact budget that I'm asking for, I want to really talk about what the staff in these positions are doing. Starting with the executive board. Now, there are 6 executive board members, all covering 6 different areas. Their job duties we could talk about for hours. So this is really just a quick, extremely high level view of what the executive board at large is charged to do across all 6 positions, really taking from that preamble that I read earlier. So all executive board members are to represent the associate students on all issues. At the end of the day, we are I'll equate it to a union rep. If all students are in this big union, we are your union reps. We are who represents you on all issues to anyone, staff, faculty, administration, anyone off campus. Most recently, we just sent off a recommendation to the governor's office because they come looking to us to seek the formal opinion of all of the associate students, which is every student at Central Washington University. Just kind of jump to my second point right there. We officially are the ones that formulate the opinion of the associate students. We also create subsidiary bodies and committees to sit and assist in the execution of the associated students' will. Obviously, the 6 of us cannot carry out the work in bidding for all 9,000 CWU students. So we depend on several committees to do this work for us and help in this work. And the Equity Service Council is a subsidiary body. The Council of Probity, our Elections Commission, and the Student Senate are all parts of these subsidiary bodies and then committees. In general, ASCW has, and Jessica, please forgive me, but I don't know the exact number, roughly 6 ASCW committees that carry over every year that we manage directly. But we also are the ones appointing students to every committee and every formal work group. You all had to go through ASCW to get appointed to this committee, but we are here to really be the leading student voice on this campus. But besides our responsibilities to represent the student body, we're also here to set all policies, procedures, and expectations for the organization that is student government. Next is the Office of the President and Vice President. These offices are separate, but the staff serve both. So we typically have 2 to 3 executive assistants. These positions serve on our behalf at various meetings when we can't be there. They plan and prepare our public meetings. We have at least 2 every week, if not more. They serve on many university committees on our behalf. They plan and execute several student events. So they plan things like Second Harvest that just happened, a free mobile pantry. They also, if any of you got a chance to come to our ASCW brunch in the Cirque Pit at the beginning of the quarter, our executive staff planned and managed all of these events themselves with just underneath us. They really do all of this, a lot of this event planning themselves. So lots of stuff for students that they do directly. They manage the ASCW office on my behalf. There's a lot that goes into it, but also I'm very busy doing things like this. So they help me tremendously with setting the goals and procedures of the physical office. They prepare presentations and materials like this. They prepared this presentation. Oftentimes, Luis and I, we are in so many meetings that we don't have time to make the materials that go in. And so they are wonderful and we really appreciate them. They do a lot of the behind the scenes work for us so we can come prepared and represent the students and be briefed on these issues beforehand. So, and then they also, we have, for example, one executive office staff lead our ethics committee right now in ASW to determine ethics for ASW. They coordinate with university parties and many other duties as a Senate. Then the Office of Student Life and Facilities. So this office hires 2 main types of staff. They hire admin assistants and then they hire Wellingtons, the people that are actually in the suits. So the Wellingtons, they're just in the suit, but the admin staff are Wellington's handler. They're supervising or guiding Wellington at all these events. They serve as Wellington as needed in case of one of those staff can't be available. They manage the many requests filed for Wellington. ASCW holds all or at least most of the Wellington suites on campus. And so they manage all of that scheduling. They communicate with Wellingtons to develop cues for safety and wellness, which is really important. They manage the care of Wellington suites because they are outrageously expensive. And we want to keep good care of them to be mindful stewards of our funds and our suits. They organize Wellington trainings. They take minutes and disperse agendas for the director, as well as oftentimes sitting on their behalf at those meetings. And they also serve as the primary social media coordinator in communication with the president's team. Next, the Office of Equity and Multicultural Affairs. So the staff in this position, they vary on title, but at the core, they are all dedicated to supporting the Equity and Services Council. That's their main mission, and really just hosting culturally relevant programs for CW students and fostering inclusivity and culture on this campus and ensuring that our most marginalized students have community, have spaces, and really can have holistic success on this university. So with that, our last office I'm going to present on is the Office of Legislative Affairs, otherwise known as Governmental Affairs. This office does many things, and the staff in that office have varying titles that really depend on the director's discretion, from my understanding. But at its core, all the staff in that office work to increase students' awareness of the governmental proceedings, to get them to register to vote and to actually vote in election season. They work with state representatives to get communication, advocate for students. They coordinate legislative priorities with other student governments, so our fellow institutions. They represent CW students in Olympia, the state's capital. And also one of the best programs that this office puts on is Cats at the Capitol, otherwise known as Lobby Day, where CW students can go to the Capitol during legislative season and directly talk to our state representatives and ask for their support on many different bills. Most recently, one of the biggest things this office spearheaded our multicultural or CCI request, really seeking the $6 million that we requested to fund that building, along with things like the Washington State College Grant. This office helps tremendously to advocate for students to our government and inform students and really break down some of the jargon that is the political sphere. So with that, the proposed budget, first of all, big shout out to Aaron for all the numbers. Thank you so much for doing all this for me. I really appreciate it. But right now we have the current rate of what these staff are being paid. Fun fact about the board of directors pay, that's actually set by the outgoing board. So we just set the incoming board's pay. Typically we do a monetary figure. We decided to do percentage this year though, just to, in our bylaws, state that the board is to be 18% above minimum wage. It comes out to a very long decimal, but in short, it's 1857. So that is technically what the board is supposed to be paid in the bylaws. And then we also set it that rate because we are also in our governing documents required to pay the board an equivalent amount of what our fellow institutions pay their boards. We also try to set our pay at a place where we can pay our staff of a minimum wage, because many of the roles in this office function almost like professional staff. They carry out duties that many professional staff carry out because of the nature that is student government. Totally fine, that's what we want. But we want to pay them more than minimum wage. Minimum wage increased a lot this year. So we would like to put them at $16.50. And we also need that $18.57 for the board because HR won't let us pay our staff close to what the board is paid, because obviously you can't make what the bosses are making. No matter how much I tried to convince them that they could. So this number of employee tab really differs. So some areas like the board of directors and the ESC have dedicated, they have 2 staff at this number of hours per week. Other areas like the BOD staff members, the staff members under student life, and the staff members under Leg Affairs, it's really up to the director's discretion how many staff to hire. It just has to fit within a total of 40 hours or 45 hours a week. So they have 45 hours to give out. They may hire however many people and divide those hours up amongst those people as they wish. So that's where you see here. But this then increased weekly cost, the annual salary increase. Then there's of course the benefits section, which is our required. We have to pay that. But then the most important is that total salary increase. So you'll see a total of $17,000 from the board, just over 1,000 for each of the remainder of the 3. And all of these pay estimates are based on a 39-week schedule, which is just the academic weeks that we are in school for. Besides the board of directors work a full year, so they are at a full year's wage. So, and then down here, that $20,941 is the total increasement. Again, that annual cost does not include Senate wage increases, as that was included in the last reallocation.
Brady, you're at time for this part of the presentation, just so you know.
Cool, I'm done. There was, oh, I have a little bit of justifications, but I'm at time, so.
Questions.
A good idea. I don't have any questions for this portion. Does anyone else? I will take that as a no. Thank you, Brady. Those were great presentations.
Thank you. I do have one more, but that's more of me as a committee member than somebody from the CWU.
Okay, well, feel free to switch hats and then keep going.
Cool. And then just one last thank you. I will stop sharing my screen if I can figure out how long. Okay, perfect. All right, we're back on the main screen. So my last presentation, you all see, well, item F, S&A fee increase discussion and proposal. So I think we're all aware of our budget situation, that we are allocating out more money than we are taking in yearly, and that our our reserves are quickly being depleted at a rate faster than I think any of us would like. And we already have the 10% cut, but we all know there's no interest to cut student programs even more. So today, I brought to the executive board a proposal to increase the S&A fee. A little bit of history. The S&A fee has not been increased since 2017. It used to be part of tuition, and so it was increased on a yearly basis as tuition was. However, the state separated it from tuition in 2016 because they capped the rate universities can raise their tuition every year, and they separated S&A from tuition. And that took effect in 2017. So we're going on quite a while and never having adjusted this fee for inflation or anything like that, for good reason. We didn't need to. We were making more money than when we were allocating out. We had good reserves. Our enrollment was increasing. We didn't want to increase student fees. I don't think we still want to, but it's just a little bit of a different situation these days. So I went to the federal government's inflation calculator. There's a fancy word for it, but I don't know what it is at this point of the day. And I put in Seattle, Washington, this area, the zip code, and asked, our S&A fee is at $237.10 per quarter. In 2017, that was the rate. If we just adjusted for inflation, what would that look like in January of 2023? So I'm not even doing it to May of 2023. I did it to June or January. And it told me that it would be if I can find my sticky note, roughly.
You just muted yourself when you grabbed your sticky note, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, I put in the numbers for the inflation calculator, and the inflation calculator told me from January of 2017 to January of 2023, our $237.10 quarterly fee to account for inflation would have to become a $292.10 student quarterly fee. I don't like that number. I don't think any of us like that number. So that's a $55 increasement. But we have to do something. So I brought to the board this proposal to increase the fee to a total of $55 increasement over the next 2 years, but to do it incrementally. So we would divide it in half and do $27.50 this next academic year, the 23-24, and then the rest of that $55, so another $27.50 in the 24-25 academic year. Because I also want to make it not a big shock to our students. We need to be mindful of student fees. It's not the best situation, but it does stop, hopefully, the bleeding of S&A, of our, I keep losing the word, reserves. That's the word. I need to put a sticky note with that on it. So with that, the board did affirm that and they voted to recommend that to S&A. I'm now seeking a recommendation from S&A to move this forward to recommend the same thing or a modified version if so wished. But at this time, I'm happy to take any questions.
I don't have any. Does anyone else? Joey.
If I can unmute. So I'll ask this question to you, Brady, as the presenter, but I guess others can answer it too. I think the question I have on here, and I also should probably say this on the record, I'm wearing multiple hats in this role. One, as the advisor to S&A, one as the advisor to ASCW, and one as the interim associate dean for student engagement and success. So all three of those would have different responses to this. But my question is asking you, I know right now, and this is separate from S&A, but I know ASCW put forward recommendations for 3 other wage increases just recently that'll go to the Board of Trustees in their summer meeting. Looking at an increase in the sub fee, looking at an increase in the WSA fee, and looking at the creation of the basic needs fee. From a student perspective, what is your all's thought or concern? Because I know obviously we aren't able to run this by all students. I know there will be different reactions, but in terms of the dollar figure is a pretty large dollar figure. I mean, I would say on a percentage wise, you're talking about a 10% increase each year to the fee. What's the thought from you all? So because I know I'm going to get asked this as the advisor from other administrators, as will Aaron, in terms of is there concern about us? We know the justification, absolutely, but concern about us increasing so many fees for the students, especially all at one time.
I think that is a very interesting question. I'm going to take an approach in a couple of different segments. There are going to be your students that, for whatever reason, are just not aware. No matter how hard you try to make them aware of the fee increases, they pay their bill, financially pays their bill, they're just not aware, and they're not going to care. There are your students that are very conscious of each line item. And there's obviously going to be a reaction from there. Many of those fees are just for, besides this fee, I think actually all of those fees are just for Ellensburg students. Yes, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think WSA is to all students, isn't it?
WSA is to all students. WSA mindful is just $1. So it's $3 increased over a whole year. And then the pantry fee is $18 over a whole year. The sub fee is what? $15 extra over the whole year?
$15 over the whole year, yeah. The increase, yeah.
This is obviously close to $100 over a whole year. But I think why we are doing this and why the board felt comfortable doing this is because at the same time that we hear, yes, we need to be budget conscious of student fees, we also have to provide services and we have to provide these resources to students. And at the end of the day, those services costs are increasing because of inflation, because of lower enrollment. So we have to weigh our options here. Either increase the S&A fee by a little bit, you may realize it's not a little bit, it is a 10% almost increase every year. Or we start cutting more programs.
I can provide some information that might be helpful to everyone here. For our students of low income, no income, or low means, the Pell Grant has actually been increased by $500 this year. So that is an increase. I don't believe the Washington State College Grant, which is formerly the Washington State Need Grant, increases or tracks with inflation. The Pell Grant doesn't go up with inflation either, it just got a specific increase. But that will certainly offset any costs that we're talking about increasing on students' behalf here. They would still end up with a net positive, which is good. And unfortunately, if we end up cutting a lot of services, even more than we already are, that risks having a lot of these, these long-standing institutions start falling apart on us. And that's another risk that we would then take, because building these things back requires institutional knowledge that is very hard to replace. you don't have people doing a specific job for like 10 or 15 years and easily just replace that with somebody replace that person with somebody off the street. So that's my take on it, and I'm hoping that that will help people, at least as far as the additional increase in funding for people is concerned. So do we have any other questions, discussion, comments?
You were muted, Jared, I think, and then you unmuted. Were you
Yeah,
calling on Sean?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was going to say, Sean, go ahead.
It's okay if I stay silent too. That's fine. But I don't have, it's hard for me to recommend one way or the other because I am on the faculty side, and the easy thing would be to say, hey, let's just increase it, right? But I think that's I'm in the meetings on the other side on faculty and staff where they're talking about slashing budgets right and left. And I'm sure that's something that Joey gets often. In terms of your justifications, it seems valid. Was it 2016 that you said that the student fee number hasn't increased? Which for the most part is pretty similar, I think, across the board with other universities, especially, through COVID. I think most universities also didn't continue to increase that without knowing exactly all the numbers. Not that, not being a voting member, I think I would definitely understand, without saying that I agree, I guess, but I definitely understand why that student fee increase would be somewhat relevant, especially regarding the services that could be rendered with that. So I think that was all it was, is just, on the faculty side, I can definitely understand that side of things and where you're coming from. What that number is going to be exactly in all these different increases, maybe that may need to be staggered over time. I don't know. That'll be something that, based on recommendations and other things for you all at CWU, may need to decide, plus with S&A. But anyway, those are my thoughts.
All right, thanks, Sean. Any other comments, questions? All right, seeing none, I will entertain motions.
No, we'll vote on it next week with this one.
Oh, you're taking all the fun away from me.
I know you get to run the meeting when there's nothing to it other than the agenda and the minutes to approve.
Well, I've already done my job.
Program
Bye.
reviews.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, then got that one done. We've just got our base funding reviews and then old business, as far as I'm seeing on the agenda. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. First base funding review is for the scheduling center. Joey, could you possibly pull something up on that?
Yep. Pulling it up now, hypothetically. There you go. And so I'll pull them up as you all talk. If we have nothing to discuss on them, I can easily move on to the next one for the sake of time, but I'll pull each one up as you all go into them.
I'm just skimming my own copy here real quick. If anybody has any questions or discussion at the moment, feel free.
And I just realized, Jared, you're pretty much, when that happens, looking just at the one little box where Brady and Evelyn both are.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I've got two fairly large monitors, which is why I'm constantly looking around everywhere, because if I even looking at people on the same screen, my eyes are going to go like 10 or 15 degrees in different directions. So I'm not being shifty-eyed on purpose. I'm just letting you know. Okay. Scheduling services makes sense to me. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this, or would like to do any discussion?
We had no questions or comments.
All right. So we'll move on to the next one, which is the Student Funds Financial Manager. Any questions or discussion on this? Okay, I think I'm happy with this so far. So let's move to the student leadership involvement and community engagement, also known as SLIS or SLICE. All right, any questions or discussion on this? They have good numbers.
I'm going to let them know your recommendation for how to say their acronym now.
Oh, I'm sure that they're going to absolutely love that.
Not that this is a question, but I'll say this, and we've talked about this before. This is one of those areas where we are able to see some good demographics just based on, and it's using the same software program for a lot of our clubs and orgs. So
yeah, I do appreciate the metrics. All right, seeing no questions or discussion, let's go on to the next one. This one should be student union operations.
I will say on this one, and not that you all need to have questions, given the conversation we had a few weeks ago with the untangling, this is one of the ones that will not get S&A funding starting next fiscal year, because they'll be fully student union fee funded. So this will likely be the last year that we will get there. I don't think Cherie wants to voluntarily complete the program reviews for us.
Well, that might explain why her proposal here is only half a year. Okay. Any questions, discussion on that? All right, seeing none, let's move on to sub accounting. All right, any discussions or questions? Okay, Joey, if you don't mind, for anyone who will watch this recording in the future, I want to throw you under the bus just for a second. If you would mind explaining how sub turns into circ accounting.
Where do you see sub versus circ accounting, so I can answer your question more?
Well, so like on our agenda, it says sub accounting.
Oh, yes. Let me give you. So the hard part is the actual name when it was funded and approved is sub accounting. So for our reference and records, it stays on there until the next base funding cycle. This is why you'll see ones, if you look back at others, SLICE is now SLICE for our records. But until this base funding cycle, they made the switch when it was still Center for Leadership and Community Involvement. So on this part of it, it says sub-accounting because that is how it was proposed. However, the office is circ accounting.
I just thought it might be weird for some people.
Nope, I appreciate you. First, I was like, I don't see it on this page.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Hey, honestly, we did not edit the recording, probably. All right. Any questions, discussions? All right, we're moving on to the next one. This is subcustodial.
I may be remembering incorrectly, but I think this is the one student union one that didn't in the detangling get shifted. So this will still have S&A funding, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure custodial and operations are still going to be S&A.
Now, I know operations moved and I know engineering moved. For some reason, I think it's only those two. I'm looking at Erin now that I'm putting Erin on the spot. Yeah, she confirmed.
I think
Never mind. I'm thinking of something different then.
All right. Well, I'm assuming no questions or discussion. Unless someone's going to interrupt me here in the next couple of seconds. Nope. So let's move on. We are done with base funding reviews. We are on to old business. Joey or anyone else, do you have old business? Okay, that makes that really easy. We are moving on to another section for public comment. If you are here from the public, feel free to comment. If you're here not from the public, you may also comment.
So gracious.
Yes. Try to be inclusive.
I make a motion.
All right. Well, I believe that is our public comment section. And
Yep.
so I move to adjourn.
Seconded.
He can't make the motion.
I move it.
No, that's right. I can't. No. This is going to trip me up every time.
Next week, now you're going to be already like, I can't make a motion.
I
and
know,
Alice will be
right?
back,
Right.
And then you'll be like,
Just a monkey wrench in the whole works. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay.
Jared, next week, please make motions.
you don't know what the motions are he's going to make yet.
Yeah,
so-
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, I will hope for positive motions.
I mean, do you want a cat as a member of this board? We could do that. I've got my cats pretty trained. It's possible. I just feel like she might be a little biased because, you know, food provider,
Yeah,
you know,
that's fair. That's fair.
conflict of interest and all that.
I think we'll have to not allow it.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, I think that is it. So we are adjourning the meeting at 6:33 on.
Thank
the
you
18th.
all. I know next week will also be a busy week. I will say this in advance. Obviously, we have to vote on all the things that were on there, so come prepared. Thank you to Brandon and Alice for watching the whole video, because I know they're going to have to watch this to get caught up. They've already indicated they would. And then also keep in mind, we still have the last handful of the program reviews. And so really from sub-engineering down through the end, make sure you get a chance to look and review those ahead of time. So have a great week all.
Have a good one.